Hey there, and welcome to Go Far Girl, the podcast where women share the stories that changed them one journey at a time. I'm your host, Chantel. I'm a travel writer and a lifelong wanderer, and I believe that every mile we travel brings us closer to the strongest, boldest, most authentic versions of ourselves. Each week, I'll sit down with incredible women to talk about the trips that shaped them, the lessons they learned along the way, and the power of going far in every sense of the word. So grab your coffee, your journal, or your carry-on, and let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome back to Go Far Girl. Today I'm here with Meggie, the mom of three, a former middle school teacher, and a little bit obsessed with national parks. Her goal is to help others plan their travel with less stress, more confidence. You can find Meggie at her website, which is parksfamilytravel.com, and there you'll find travel tips, guides, educational planning courses, consulting, digital activity books, anything that makes your park adventures a little more accessible, educational, and memorable. So, last week, if you haven't watched, you definitely should head back and listen to Maggie tell us about her favorite park, which is Glacier National Park. But today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, which is when the trip doesn't quite go as planned. And I know that everyone has had a trip like this, but they're not the trips that people see on Instagram. And that's why I wanted to talk about it with Meggie today, because I feel like a lot of the times, especially as moms, we see social media posts, we see all these glorious adventures. And then when we take our kids somewhere, it's sort of a circus and things don't live up to the social media hype that we thought. And I think sometimes you feel like, where did I go wrong? Why is this my life? What the heck am I doing? And it's really just part of life. It's just the part that people don't show. And so I definitely want to talk about it with her today. So, Meggie, thanks for coming back. I'm so glad to have you. So let's jump in. Tell us what happened when you went to Yosemite.
All right. Yes. So, just as most trips go for our family, I get really stuck on a park I want to visit, and then I figure out how to make it happen. Early 2022, I decided like this was the year for Yosemite. I had technically been there when I was 3, so I had always counted it in my national parks like counting because I have pictures and it's part of our kind of family stories of about that trip. So I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, sort of. But I was like, no, we need to explore it. My husband hadn't been there. My children obviously hadn't been there either. So we're like, I'm doing Yosemite. We're going to do Yosemite for spring break. And so that was maybe the second week of April, which is a little roll of the dice in Yosemite just because it can get late spring snow and things like that. But that wasn't what was the problem with our Yosemite trip. We actually had really great weather in Yosemite. Uh, what happened with Yosemite is the night before we were to leave, my daughter woke up and was sick. And she was throwing up, and it was high, it's normally a stressful event, but then you think, well, what do we do? Do we cancel the trip? You know, is everyone else going to get sick? So on and so forth. She had been isolated while she was sick. She woke up in the morning feeling great, and we were going to spend most of the day in the car. So we knew we weren't going to be exposing her to other people. We decided, hey, let's go on this trip. Though in retrospect, she was being exposing other people because she was stuck in the car with our whole family because she was fine. We drove from Salt Lake area through Reno and stayed in Carson City. And the kids were playing in the pool. We had a good evening, went to bed, woke up, had the breakfast at the hotel, and then hit the road to get to Yosemite. And a couple hours in, my youngest, who at the time would have been almost 3.5, maybe, doesn't start feeling well. And we'll just say we had an incident in the car seat. The other kids actually did really great. We pulled over to the side. They played on the side of the road. That sounds really dangerous. It was kind of like forested. Okay, they were in a safe place on the side of the road. It was actually a really beautiful location, and we cleaned my daughter up. My kids were such champs because, to be honest, if we were in a little Corolla, again, in our previous discussion, we talked about how I'm very thrifty. So we took our like little Toyota Corolla on this long drive because it has better gas mileage than our minivan. So we're all, snug as a bug in that Corolla. And fortunately, nothing got too messy. We were able to hit the road again. She seemed to be feeling okay. So, all things considered, everyone was in decent spirits, right? My other child who had been sick, no problems, still felt great. We're like, maybe it's car sickness, who knows? Then an hour or two later, she got sick again. So we're like, okay, maybe it's not car sickness. Um, but the thing is, she felt fine in between. So we didn't know what to do, but we're like, well, we're in the middle of Nevada, California. Like we got to just keep going. Like we can't turn around anymore. We're closer to our next hotel. And all that. And again, she felt fine later. So we're like, maybe again, just some nausea from the car. We actually ended up doing a hike. We went to Tuolumne Grove Sequoias. Highly recommend the hike. Really great, beautiful. Everyone did great. So we're like, we're in the clear, right? We had maybe this one thing, and then car sickness. Let's go. Did Tuolumne Grove, spent the night, woke up the next morning, and went to Yosemite. I should say, for those of you who are like, they're exposing everyone, this was still mask time, and we had really good hygiene, and we really weren't near anybody during this portion of the trip. Just so you know, if you're judging me, go for it. But
This is not a
everyone really
judgy
seemed
zone here,
fine.
people.
Yeah,
So back
the
up
safe
first
space,
of all.
right? See, I literally have OCD, like, and so if I'm willing to do it, it's probably pretty safe. But then we went so really not the worst trip, right? So far it's okay. We've been in the car a long time, but the kids haven't been losing it. We've been having this, you know, sickness that I'm not sure about. I love to be in control. So I did feel very out of control because I just didn't know, is it going to hit? Is it going to hit again? Are we done? Are we clear? Are we, endangering other people? Not endangering, but, exposing to
Well, you
other
never know
people.
what the heck's going on. Yeah.
No, you don't. But I want to know what's going on, right? So that was already like raising my stress levels. But we got again to the hotel, had a decent night, woke up, and my kids were just so grumpy. And in retrospect, I get it now, right? But I had all these kind of big plans for the next day, and those did not live up to what my expectations were. He's now 10, so he was probably 7, almost 8, and he was just like, that was not his day. He didn't want to do like anything we wanted to do. We had like packed a lunch, but he was like demanding the like restaurant pizza, and we're like, no, that's like not how we roll. Like maybe we probably should have just given in, like in retrospect. But we're like, no, we're like not buying the pizza. Eat your PB&J. And so we did. I mean, there's some highlights, right? We did get to we got their junior ranger books. We went to Lower Yosemite Falls. Let me tell you, it was gorgeous. Yosemite did not disappoint. Our situation is what was the major disappointment. With kids who weren't cooperating and complaining. I really wanted to do part of what's called the Mist Trail. I believe it also goes all the way up to Vernal Falls, but I was like, oh, I don't know if my kids can really hack it at this age or temperament. But they were so not into it that time that I stayed in the car with the kids while my husband went and did portion of the Mist Trail just on his own. I said, we're here. Technically, I had done part of it when I was 3. So I was like, this is your
Definitely
turn.
count.
You go. My dad just said, he said, you climbed all the way to Vernal Falls. I didn't have to pick you up once. And I'm like, yeah. Like, I feel like that. I'm like, I'm almost 40. And I'm like, yeah, when I was 3,
Yeah, you
I
need to
was
put that
some of
on
the
your
most
resume.
tired.
Like, yeah, just who I am. I was born this way.
I was born this way. And, but so then I'm just sitting in the car, very resentful of my children, right? Like, you're holding me back. Again, I love my children. They are not holding me back. I became a better person because of this experience, but I was a little peeved because that was probably the hike I was most excited about in this itinerary. We didn't have a lot of hiking on the docket just because, again, ages and weather and things like that. Some things were closed because of snow and whatever. But that one I was like super excited about. So I missed that. The kids are just like complaining. I'm sure they were just all sitting and watching. Bluey saved us that trip. I just have to say, my love for Bluey runs deep, and I think it might be because of that trip. Because
Thank you,
when we were
Australia.
just dealing, yes, I know. When we were dealing with it all, it almost always came back to the Bluey episodes we had downloaded and like saved our sanity. So, for those of you who like maybe feel a little guilty letting your kids have screen time when you're on these road trips or traveling, I am the mom who will completely validate you that you can give them the screens. It's not going to ruin the trip. Okay. Now, for families who that's not even part of their family culture, then screens are probably not going to be the best bet, but it may be a special thing. Now I'm going down this road of screens. Okay, to each their own, but it saved us. So eventually my husband made it back and we were leaving, and we did stop just at a little pull off near El Capitan. Again, everyone's feeling, my son's a little bit, we let them all kind of rest and hang out in the car and watch a show. So they kind of got a second wind. And sorry, this was supposed to be a disappointing trip, but it was so great. Like El Capitan was great. We watched the climbers, and all that. But after that, we head back to our hotel. We did stay outside of the park, probably about 30 minutes. And probably about 15 minutes, maybe it was longer, but so 20 or 30 minutes into the drive, my son goes, the one who was really cranky all day, I don't feel so good.
Oh no.
Uh, so we pull over a road. He doesn't feel well. He is sick. And so that was great. And then we go back to the hotel and we're like, okay, we're done for the day. At least let's get him home. And I'm thinking, hey, one daughter was sick, like for a very short period of time. Another daughter, 2 days later, one daughter was sick, very short period of time. It looks like it's this quick, fast, not a huge deal thing. My son, I don't think has ever been sicker than he was on that
Oh
trip.
no.
It just, once it started, it did not stop for the poor, sweet little boy. And so all night he's sick. The next morning, we still had another full day to be spending in Yosemite, but he was absolutely not uh, capable of leaving the hotel room, really. And so my husband took my daughters and they did some adventures in the park, and I stuck around with my little buddy and we were really fortunate. They had a laundry room at the hotel. I did some laundry to find more clothes and get reset, but definitely a disappointment, right? I had been planning and planning this trip and so looking forward to exploring Yosemite much more in depth than we had. Uh, and it kind of stunk.
Literally.
But it wasn't forever. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to get into details for your guys' sake, but like we were not prepared. And I I didn't get a bill or anything from the hotel, but I hope we did our best to keep everything in the best shape. And I learned some lessons about dealing with sicknesses when you're not home. So definitely some lessons learned. Um, but it was rough. Fortunately, so he was, sick all afternoon, all evening, most of the next day, maybe even into the night. But by the next morning, when it was time to leave, which is very scary to be like, let's go get in this tiny car if you have a very sick child, he was feeling much better. We were really lucky. He was feeling much better. Silver lining there. Because our next destination, actually, we're like, again, remember how I'm like, let's do it all? It's not a
Yeah,
trip
we're
to
there.
Yosemite. We're like, hey, we're almost to San Francisco. Let's go. So the second part of the trip was a trip to San Francisco. And so we drive out there. Everyone's fine. The car, I mean, for how terrible some of this experience was, where I missed an entire day in a park I was very excited about. And again, my attitude was, I mean, now I'm like laughing about the story and like, oh, like the memories. I was not necessarily a pleasant character to be around, right? Like it was not my highest motherhood, you know, example. But we get there, we do some exploring, and we go to, I can't remember just some little stops near in Oakland and whatnot, hotel. Just had it was mostly a travel day, but no one got sick. No one got sick. Um, so I was super happy. My, but the next day, is our one day in San Francisco, right? And again, as the maximizer, I'm like, we are going, we're taking the BART, which is like the commuter rail, because we were in a, a suburb. We're taking the BART. And then there's like this cool little, like, above ground tram that will take us to Fisherman's Wharf. And then we'll do Pier 39, and this is where I've talked about buy-in for my kids. I let them all kind of pick something they wanted to see or do in San Francisco. And so that everyone, if it's not your thing, you're willing to go through it because you're going to get your thing. So we had a whole like plan, right? For me, I'm sorry, I should have, it was to see the Golden Gate Bridge from like a beach and then overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. That's what I really want to do. I've been to San Francisco before, done the Fisherman's Wharf and all that. Well, we were very sensitive to my son, how he's doing. Again, we were wearing masks on all the public transportation. All of us were. I'm pretty sure it was required still at that time, where we were in California. But my husband wasn't feeling so great. But he's like, I'm okay. And my son goes, I'm not feeling great either. But he really wanted to go to San Francisco. So we go in, Fisherman's Wharf, Pier 39. Okay, if you go to San Francisco, guys, don't make Pier 39 your number one like destination. It's very touristy. It has some redeeming qualities. Okay, I'm not saying don't go, but like, it's just
Right.
all these stores. And my 3-year-old is like, I want the ice cream that's $10.99. And we're like, we
Mhm.
don't buy ice cream that's $10.99. Like, we'll buy ice cream bars at like the supermarket down the street. Again, I'm not saying don't give your kids treats. I've learned also maybe we want to add in the budget like a really special, like we don't normally do this kind of treat. But at that time, we were not doing treats. So she's throwing a fit the entire time we're walking. We walk around, we see there's the cool, you can see Alcatraz from there. You can see the cool sea lion. So again, it's fun, but not when you have a 3.5-year-old throwing a fit. By the time we've kind of circled around, she is now lying like prostrate on the floor in the middle of one of the most touristy places of San Francisco. And I'm like, I'm just going to let her cry, like, let her feel her feelings. Like, I'm not changing my mind. And I think she thought, is if I don't give in, or like if she doesn't give up, I'll give in. So I'm letting her throw, and I'm even kind of distancing. Like, I'm watching her and I'm there. I sound like a terrible mother. I'm not. I promise. I
You
was
don't.
just letting her have her moment. She had to work through the tantrum. But I'm watching people and they're like, what is going on? Like, who's this child? Eventually, she calmed down, because eventually 3.5-year-olds do calm down and understand that no means no. And it was kind of a miserable morning, to be honest. It was like, yay, like we saw some highlights. It was just not enjoyable. We do finally find that there's a McDonald's nearby, and we say, guess what? We're going to go to McDonald's and we're going to get the frozen yogurt cones or whatever, the soft serve
Yeah.
from McDonald's, because we can all get one for $10 total as opposed to the one. So they, that kind of appeased them. Maybe that was giving in. I don't know. I feel like it's called compromise. But by the time we were done with McDonald's, after my son had stuffed himself full of French fries and ice cream, he is not feeling very good anymore again. And we have this picture of him. We're kind of just trying to regroup and figure out what to do, because it was probably only like 11 or 12 in the day. And so the plan was to be out all day and we were probably going to go to Golden Gate Park, and we wanted to go to do that beach thing where you can see the Golden Gate Bridge. But my son was literally like on a cement barrier that's like at parking lots. He was just like lying like flat on that, like drooping. And my husband's like, I really don't feel so good. So we're like, what do we do? So we sent the two of them back home. And, again, so many blessings or mercies or whatever. They did not get sick on the way back to the hotel. But the minute they got back to the hotel, they were both sick again. Well, my
Oh,
husband now for the first time. So it has now struck 4 of the 5 of us. I'm just living in fear, right? And my daughters and I are like, yeah, let's do this adventure. They were feeling fine. Let's do this adventure. Let's go to this beach where I can see the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm like trying to figure it out on my like whatever the public transportation app is there. We go to the bus stop. The bus isn't showing. We almost give up. Finally, the bus does come. It was kind of there were other people waiting, and we were all like, we don't know what to do. We get on this bus. It's quite a long bus ride. Then we get off, and I'm like, okay, now we're walking, except it was like a good mile or two of walking. And again, I have a 3.5-year-old and I don't know how old she would have been, like five or 6 year old. just schlepping it. It was hot. Uh, it just wasn't how I had envisioned it, I guess. But we kept going, and we finally make it there. Though between getting off the bus and getting to the beach, there was an accident, like a wet accident with one of my children. And I, so I'm like, of course, we have, pee coming down our pants. This is just par for the course. Fortunately, I did have one change of clothes. So here's a pro tip. Even if you have fully potty trained children, bring at least one set of clothes that maybe all of the children could wear if
I
you're
love this.
close enough, right? Like just have a pair of the shorts and a t-shirt and underwear. I don't care if it's boys or girls or whatever, just have one set because someone is possibly going to have that emergency or fall in the mud puddle or whatever. And so fortunately, when we got to the beach and we realized that, we were able to change, though there was just porta potties. There's no like public, it was roughing it for a young kid, but we did it, and we got to the beach, and guess what? It was. This is not the sad part. I'm not going to say like it was closed or it was foggy and you couldn't see it. It was actually beautiful and it was wonderful, and um, it had been really hard to get there for us. My girls had pretty good attitudes, but for me, carrying all of that and literally carrying like the 3.5-year-old sometimes, it was so hard. And we probably only spent 30 or 45 minutes at that spot. My girls played in the sand and we got the views and whatever. We were not there very long. Definitely took us a lot longer to get there than to come back. And then of course and then we turned around and went home. Basically, we spent the 30 minutes, turned around, and then did the. It probably took us another 1 to 2 hours to get back to the hotel. This time climbing up,
Ugh,
walking uphill, and because San Francisco, has hills,
so hilly.
and yeah, and then then that night again, my husband. We're supposed to leave the next day. My son is just laying in bed, not feeling well. My husband's been sick. Back and forth, and we're like, what is going to happen? And the next morning, again, we were driving straight from San Francisco to Salt Lake. We weren't stopping in the middle. We were just doing a straight shot. And we had, for a 13-hour drive, the most incredible drive without any pains or afflictions. Maybe some attitude issues, but no one got sick again. And so it was just, I'm sure we want to do some follow up, but for this trip, um, everything felt to be going wrong, but there were just these moments of, first of all, these moments of magic, right? Like when I have this picture, you said the hike, you're like, so what if this is not the Instagram worthy trip? The funny thing is I have used several pictures from this trip on my Instagram. And I do full disclosure. I don't say like, Yosemite is magical and nothing can go wrong. I say like, here's this picture of my son and daughter, and it's a beautiful picture of them looking up at El Capitan, and I love that picture. Or there's a picture of my daughters playing with the Golden Gate Bridge in the background, and they're playing in the sand, and I'm like, I love that moment and that picture. And then the caption's like, but you do not want to know what was happening like 90% of the time on this trip. Um, but it was
Think that's
absolutely
the
worth
point
it.
though, right? And I think that that's so
Yes,
valid
yes.
because while you were explaining it, I was visualizing your Instagram feed. I was like, I bet there's this great picture of El Capitan and the waterfalls that your husband took, not knowing you were in the car stuck with Bluey and he was the only one doing this. And I think that's the thing as moms, especially, we just see all this beautiful stuff and we're like, "Oh, I want that. I want that." But you don't know what it took to get to that point. And you don't know that like you were holding like wet shorts, like and smelling like vomit to see this, to see this beautiful view. And so it's so
Yes.
important to not just envy other people's lives and think that they have all of these, amazing experiences. Even though you do have an amazing experience, it's not all glorious all the time. And so I think that that's just such an important lesson to keep in mind.
And honestly, that's kind of the default. Now, this one was a little bit worse than most experiences we have on trips, but I almost say like something's going to go wrong. I go into it knowing it's not going to be a perfect trip. I feel like we end up getting sick. Like it's like, oh, we're going on vacation. Okay, you flew away from home. Oh, here you go. Like here's strep throat or here's stomach bug. And the funny thing is, if here's a plug for that previous episode where we talk about Glacier. I didn't mention this in the episode, but I woke up the first morning. We drove halfway to Glacier. I woke up the first morning with a pain in my throat, and I thought, from some experience, I thought, I think this is strep throat. Like, I think I have strep throat, but it hadn't developed enough by the time we got to like the last medical clinic. I was like, maybe it's just like, sleeping in a hotel and the dry air and whatever. But by the end of that first day, I was like, I have strep throat and I have no antibiotics and I don't do well with strep throat. So that entire Glacier trip, again, I was very mindful of other people and no one else got strep throat, even in our family, just to give that little preface. But I was surviving on children's ibuprofen, and then 2 hours later, like, or 3 hours, whatever the dosage, children's acetaminophen or Tylenol, and then boom, boom, boom. And I only had so much because we're in the middle of Glacier that I was like rationing it. So there were moments where I was in tears. Again, my whole like business is national parks travel with family, and I'm sitting next to my husband and I'm like, we're never going on another family vacation again. We're never going to another national park. Like I am done. Uh, and it is probably one of my favorite vacations I've ever had. And the pain, like, yeah, I know it's there, but, or was there, and it was pretty miserable. But again, so worth it. So worth it. Like, I would do it again, knowing, I would have stopped in Kalispell and gone to the clinic if I was smarter. We literally had to stop in, it's called Idaho Falls, a town in Idaho, on the way home because I'm like, I need the antibiotics. Like, I cannot go another day. Um, but and it's like a lot of our trips, we have that something goes wrong or multiple things go wrong. But I always come out feeling like I totally did that. Like I handled it, not always well, but I survived it. And that little hike with my daughters down, where we were like busing and walking and navigating and peeing our pants and all of that. Um, I felt so empowered after that. I felt like, wow, like I, with my mom and two little girls, like navigated this city, and we were hot and we were tired, but we did something worthwhile and meaningful. Like it was worth it. And it helps me remember, like, next time something's hard, I'm like, yeah, but I did that. I can do this. And that's one of the best things I think about travel. So when something goes wrong with travel, don't think yourself as cursed necessarily. Obviously, it stinks. It stinks in the meantime, but almost always things are gonna work out eventually.
I love that, and then you come away with a story, right, that, you can laugh at after the fact, maybe not for a year or 2, but you can laugh. I once took this wasn't a sick story like yours, but I drove my kids to San Francisco, and we went through all the rigmarole of getting there and finding parking and all this, and we go to get out of the car, and my middle son says, "I don't have shoes." And I said, "Well, put them on." And he said, "Oh, no, I don't have them." And I said, "I don't know what that means." And he said, "I didn't know you wanted me to bring shoes. I didn't know we were gonna get out." I said, "We drove for 3.5 hours, and you didn't think we were ever going to get out of the car?" He said, "No, I do not have shoes." And so I went to Target and bought shoes, not
Nice.
happily at all.
No,
I was
no.
so mad. Then he had the nerve, like, "Can we just go to a real store and get real good shoes?" I said, "I will get you the cheapest, ugliest pair of shoes I could find, and you will wear them and love them." Because he doesn't bring he wasn't 4, he was, like, 10. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"I don't even understand this." And so then the whole day we're walking up and down the hills of San Francisco, and he's like, "These shoes are terrible, my feet." And I was like, "If you don't smile so big in every single picture," no, I swear. I was like
You're right. That is the reality, right? And
like, Who doesn't
Yeah.
bring shoes? Like, what are you
No,
doing? I didn't think I
well,
had to explain
yeah.
to you to
I
put
think it would
shoes on your
surprise
feet.
you, right?
Yeah, I'd be like, "Hey, bring something to do in the car. Bring a like, go grab a snack out of the pantry. We're gonna be in a car for 4 hours." But I didn't say put shoes on.
Shoes on. That's funny you say that because yesterday we left to go to somewhere with my family, and like they know we're getting out of the car where we're going, and I look down and my 6-year-old has no shoes on. So it's like funny that you say that. I mean, she's 6, but I'm like, because I'm like, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car. So I guess she just got in the car. I'm like, go get your shoes, go get your shoes. You're
Yeah,
like,
but, like, where do
let's
you
go,
ever
go back. Yeah.
go that you don't maybe need a pair of shoes on your
Yeah.
feet?
Well, and I got lucky. I'm not usually like, they're old enough. Like, I'm not like looking at them in the back of the minivan. I just happened to at this time. And I'm like, okay, well, glad we
The
caught
thing
that
is you
one.
can never let your guard down. You
You
can never
cannot.
be too comfortable or too,
No,
like, just like, "Okay, we've
confident.
got this figured out." You cannot do it. That's
No,
how you set
you
yourself up
cannot.
for failure right there.
I actually love that you mentioned that because that's something I kind of advocate. I mean, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, do I have really like enough experience? Or like, I haven't visited every national park, but my whole like premise is national park travel, right? And I'm like, oh, like there's so many people who have visited every park, like they're more of an expert or they're more, of the person to refer to. And yeah, there's lots of great resources. And I hope people utilize all the resources, right? But that doesn't discount like my ability to um, share,
Your
information or
your
tips and
2
tricks.
cents
And I,
in, for sure.
yeah. Yeah, and I want other like people who want to travel who think, "Oh, like I'm 40 and I've never left my state," or or however old you are, and you're like, "Oh, I've never really taken my kids on a trip. Like I don't have the experience or the knowledge." And I'm like, the only way you're going to get that experience and knowledge in traveling is by doing it. And I feel like there's so much validity in really all types of travel, whether it's like going camping up the canyon. Like to me I've set like some like market research out or whatever, and like how many times do you travel, and to me I'm like, you're away from your home voluntarily for a night. Like you are going somewhere and sleeping somewhere else and coming back. And even some travel, I mean, if you had the funds you could do like just one day, but I don't think
Extreme
I'll
day
ever get
trips. That's a
there.
whole 'nother story.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, your experiences are worthwhile, and your travel style and type are valid. I guess is something that's important to me. And I think hopefully these stories make people realize, like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one who has like these weird like 10-year-olds who don't bring shoes and like misjudging the sickness of my child and things like that, because that's just how it
And I
goes.
think also you don't have to fly to Europe. You don't have to have this
No.
humongous, crazy vacation. You can get in the car for 10 hours or less and have a great weekend with your family. It doesn't have to be. I think that's the takeaway from this, right? As a parent, you just wanna get your kid out there, even if it's the park in the town next to you and not the park you go to every day. Do that.
Yes.
Even if it's,
Yes.
a little walk along the river where you throw rocks the whole way, do that. Like, just go and get out and do something, and that is it right there. So,
Absolutely. Love it.
yeah. Thank you so much, Maggie, that was so amazing. Thank you for being
Thank
willing to
you.
share your, lovely experience with us.
Oh yeah, it's a good, and it's a family favorite now because
Of
we're like,
course.
remember this? Remember when this was when dad
Remem
was throwing up and you were in the bathtub and you were like, what's going on? He wasn't throwing up in the bathtub, but in a hotel bathroom, that's what you have one place for to congregate. So it was, my daughter will mention that multiple times a year, and not in a
the
traumatized way.
No, because she wasn't traumatized because she's a child, so it's all just like, "Do,
Yeah,
do, do,
she's just like, "Oh my gosh, dad!"
do." So, go
My
ahead
husband's
and
gonna
mention
appreciate that.
your where everyone can find you and follow you again. I'll put the links in the description, but for people who are just listening, where can they find you and follow along with your family's adventures?
Oh, I love that. Okay, so we did talk Instagram. So I'm Parks Family at Parks Family Travel on Instagram. I also have a website, parksfamilytravel.com. And then with that, I have a lot of freebies, and I found one I thought would be really good for this episode, and it's parksfamily.com//, checklist. And it just is a little, you sign up and you get a little itinerary guide on like what would make a good itinerary, and then a checklist that you can use as you fill out your itinerary. And I think I give some ideas of itinerary like programs you can use, because I think you don't have to have like an hour by hour itinerary, but I think having a good itinerary will help you maintain kind of that confidence and ability to pivot when things don't go well. So just grab that freebie, parksfamilytravel.com/checklist, and get excited about itineraries. That's the type
So
Amy is like. I
cool.
love a good itinerary.
I love that resource. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. And everybody else, we'll see you next week. Thanks.